welcome to this video. This is the C# beginner series. Previously, we had talked about control flows. We looked at conditional statements, we looked at jump statements, we looked at loops. Today, we'll be looking at arrays. I'm starting from this video, and the next few videos, we'll be talking about collections. We'll be talking about data types that can hold more than one item at a time. So today, as I've said, we'll be looking at arrays in C#. So arrays in C# are a fixed size collection of elements of the same type. Now, so two things from this point I want us to pick is that first is it is a fixed size collection, and secondly, it is the same type of elements that are stored within it. So it's very important to keep these two at the back of your mind when working with arrays. First off, it is fixed, and then secondly, the data type it holds will be the same. So let's go and look at an example and see how this is done. Yeah. So here we have our code, and let's say we want to have an array of integers, for example. So let me just call this nums. For example, if I want to create an integer, this is how you create it. But what you must do, you must specify the number of items you want in this particular array. So for example, if you want 5 items, you put 5 like this, and it knows that you are creating an array of size 5. Now, this is important because for an array, we need to know the size because it is a fixed size. For arrays, it uses fixed sizes. So if you are trying to do something and you know maybe there are always going to be 10 items there, probably something like that, so you know that it's going to be an array of 10. Or if you know that there will be 50 items, you know it's going to be 50, for example. Now, so use this data type, the array data type, when you have a collection of items that are similar. So maybe let's say we have records of students, and we know that, for example, they wrote an exam for mathematics. So we know that the records for mathematics are stored in a particular location. So for example, in an array here. So we could say that the first student, nums, had 1 mark. So you see what this does is you are saying that whatever is in arrays, you start from index 0. So unlike in conventional world, when you want to start counting the number of items in a bucket list, you start from 1, 2, 3. But for the programming, for computer program, and you will see this across other types too, that it starts from index 0. The first item is always index 0. So what I'm saying here is I want to put into index 0 the number 1. So basically that's what this just is saying. And the reason why I can do this is because I have told it that this is going to be of type integer. It's going to be an array that holds 5 integer numbers. Now, so let's just do something. Let me console. Okay, so now, if I try to console write line this, so maybe I just show us this and see. So if you try to console log this and you run this now, you will see that it doesn't show you the array. It shows you system.in32, and you see the symbol of an array. What this means is that it cannot display the content, and we'll come to what an object is later in the series. But basically, it's only simple types that can be displayed on the console. So if you want to display what are the items within an array, you will need to loop through it, or iterate through it to display the items there. So for example, we could have something like, int I equals to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. Remember, this is the for loop, and this is what we'll likely have. And then, so what this statement is saying is that I want to go start from index 0 all the way to index 4, because 4 is less than 5, 5 is no more less than 5. And for each of them, I want to go through nums and check what is in each index. So from index 0 to index 4. Now, if we run this now and see what it comes out, we see it has 1 0 0 0 0. Now, why did we have that? We only assigned a value for the first one. And you remember when we talked of integers, the default value for integers is 0. So it means when you create an integer array, each space, each location within the array will have a default value of 0. So if I take this off now, let me remove this and then run it again now, you will see that everything is 0 because the default value for the integer is 0. So basically, when you instantiate or create an array, it creates an array with the default data type. So if it's a string, for string it's going to be empty. For character is going to be the character 0, not 0 as a number, but as like this, which is actually nothing. This actually is nothing as a character. And for something like a boolean, it's going to be false. So if we change this to boolean now, if I say it's a boolean, if I run this now, you see the default values there will be false, 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 because the default value for boolean is false. So let me just make this integer. And so if I wanted to check the item, for example, if I wanted to set the item in index 4, that is the last item, to 54, all I need to do is just this. So you see what this is saying is from in index 4, I want to put 54. And if we run this now, what you find is that you see 54 in the last index there. So basically, that is what we have for the array. But one thing I just wanted to talk about also is, apart from this way, we could create our array using another approach. So for example, we could say another nums, and you could create the array like this. So for example, I could say 5, 6, 8. So you see what this does is I don't need to specify how many items are because actually I am already putting in the items that will be in the array. So for example, it knows, it can infer from here that I'm going to be having 3 items in this array. So if we let me just change this to another nums, and I need to know the size of this is 3. There are only 3 items there. So if I run this now, we see 5, 6, 8 in the order in which we put it within our array. So basically, this is another way you could declare your array in C#. Now, what happens when you try to access an item that does not exist? So for example, we are saying we know nums has only 5 items, right? So nums has only 5 items, and let's say I put in index 5. So you know index 5 doesn't exist because within nums we only have 5 items, and the index starts from 0. So index 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it means index 5 doesn't exist. So let's see what will happen when we run this. Let's see what happens when we try to run this. So when we run it, and you see it throws in an error, an index out of range exception, because the index we are trying to access, which is index 5, does not exist within nums array. This array that we created here, index 5 doesn't exist there, so it will throw an exception. So this is something you need to be careful about when you are trying to work with arrays. So usually what you could do to be sure that you don't go beyond the bounds is that you check that it is within the length of that array. So for example, let's say I wanted to display, let me just put nums here again, and I wanted this, so let me change this to 4, and I wanted to, so because if I come here now and I make this 13 and I run this now, because you know we are going from 0 to 12, we have this problem when we get to 5, when I becomes 5, because from 0 to 4, yes, it does have, but when it gets to 5, it says 5, there's no index for 5. So one way to cater for this is by using a property. So nums dot, we have length. So what this does is it goes to get the length of the array. So even if this is 15, it will get actually the length, and it will be 15. So if I solve this and run it again for us to see, so oh sorry, I need to put a breakpoint. So let me run it again. So the breakpoint, actually what it just does is stop the application at that particular point. So it stops. You see, so you see the nums.length is what, 15. So this length property is something you could always make use when you are trying to maybe use a loop to go through all the items there. So now let's say that we wanted to get the sum of every item inside another sum. So I could come here, let me stop this. So I could come here and I could say for int I, and I want to go another, check the length of this, and I want to sum the item. So let me have a sum, and sum plus equals to. So what this does is that at the beginning our value for sum is 0. So what we are now doing is we are going through all the items in our array, which is another nums, and we are saying for each of the items, starting from index 0, index 1, 2, and since the length is 3, it will stop at index 2. So it sums everything up. And if we come here now and say we want to console write line what is in sum, so let me just put sum is, so that we can see it clearly. So what you will see is it says the sum is 19. Now if you check, the reason why it is 19 is because 5 plus 6 is 11, and 11 plus 8 is 19. So this is one of the reasons why we use array, because we want to probably collate some items that are related together and probably perform some operations on those items. So I just want to give a small assignment, an exercise, so you know in our calculator, in our sample calculator, what we take in for now is just 2 items. We don't take in more than 2 items. So for example, you can only put in maybe a plus b. That's all we can do. Now I want you to be able to write an application, build up on that, and what I want is, for example, I want you to be able to do 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus. So it should allow you to add as many numbers, for example, to take in the input you want, as many as you want before it gets the output. I want us to try that, and we'll see how you come up with a solution. I want you to make use of this knowledge of array. So let's say, for example, because we are working with array, and array has to be a fixed size, let's say we are working with 5 items. So we want to take in 5 inputs from the user, and based on those 5 inputs, we want to sum them up or multiply or divide depending on what operation the user picks. So if it's a divide, it means it's going to be the first item, we'll divide it by the second item, and then it will divide the third, then the fourth, then the fifth. So when you say it's going to be the first divided by the second, and then the answer from that will be divided by the third, so on to the fifth. So I want you to make it to take in 5 items, and those 5 items should be in an array. So let's try that, and if you have an issue with that, you could just drop in the comment section and we will look at that together. But in the subsequent video, I'll be writing out a simple solution for that. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was clear what an array is. Thank you, and I'll see us again in the next video.